Thank you for tuning in to Leadership Level Up. I'm Brian Prairie.
And I'm Dr. Jeff Williamson.
I am just starting my leadership journey.
And I've been guiding leaders for 30 years.
Our podcast aims to shine a spotlight on outstanding leaders and provide a platform for them to describe their leadership journey and share the guiding principles that have helped them become great leaders.
Today we're joined by Staci Wilken, Experience Curator at Experience Edit.
Hi friends, welcome back. Today we're talking with our friend Staci Wilken, and you'll get to know her a little bit better over the course of the next few minutes. But thanks for coming, Staci. It's always good to visit with you and hear what you're working on these days. So
yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to it. So as you know, we've been talking to leaders for our podcast and building those conversations with people a lot. We will spend some time talking about some of your experiences and your perspectives on leaders and what a good leader is like from your perspective. And so we're going to ask you some questions and pick your brain a little bit together.
I'm flattered that I make that category of people, right?
Oh yeah,
we never know how we get there.
Absolutely.
You very much so do. And I feel we both have worked with Staci a lot in the past. So there's a lot. I think there's a lot to discuss and kind of break down.
Yeah, when we started building our list of people we wanted to bring in to interview for the podcast, you were on the short list for sure.
For sure, yeah.
Again, thank you.
Yeah,
things could have changed since then. You never know.
Well, no, not this case.
No.
You know, so as we think about that, of course we want listeners to get a little sense of your background and history. So you're a local Illinois product. And so tell me a little bit about your schooling, what you studied, and how you got into your career early on.
Yeah, so I grew up on a farm. You know, people probably don't know. I was like raising pigs and working outside and doing the things.
Heartland America.
Yeah. I went to Millikan University down in Decatur and played volleyball for a couple years, got my degree in marketing, and then just kind of like jumped right, head first into that whole like job thing. And it was interesting. My first job was punching a time clock, working in a cubicle. And it was that job. And I always say experiences always tell you what you do and don't like. And so, gosh, I learned quickly that I didn't like that at all. I was not built to be in a cubicle,
Don't fence me in.
Don't fence me in.
That's true to character for you.
Yeah.
Knowing you very well, it's like the fact that you actually even considered that is
Yeah, when you said that, I'm like,
first job, right?
Yeah,
you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So from there, I actually accepted a role at the Chicago Board of Trade,
right?
Where I was working with my cousin who had a brokerage firm, and so I was on the trading floor, and I was doing the hand signals and the arbitrage, the yelling, which is also true to my character. It was a perfect.
I wasn't going
fit.
to say that.
Yeah, the people part of it is what I love the most. If you would have asked me if I would have been in finance in any capacity, it was a total it was just kind of like I'll be there for a couple months and transition out. Well, 8 years later, it just proved to be a good fit for my family dynamic. I was working 7 to 2, so I was like out early and home early, so I could be a mom to Cole at home. So it was about year 7 where I'm like, things are shifting to more online trading. I didn't love it. I was really empty. And so I just kind of was like, okay, what's next? Well, my mom approached me with a little newspaper clipping and said, you might really like this job. And it brought me then to work local. So I applied for the position with the Village of Manteno and the Manteno Chamber of Commerce. I was there for 3 years, acting as the executive director and then the events coordinator for the community, which was really fun. Again, kind of like
tapped into that people connection piece of you that enjoyed
community, which was new to me, but I found that I really needed that in my world. And then 3 years later, almost to the exact date, the opportunity came up to serve as the executive director for the Kankakee County Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Right.
So I applied for that, and it's hard to believe that I was in that role for over 6 years. But it was really a great learning experience. So I served the community in that way as kind of the lead for the destination marketing organization to attract tourists to Kankakee County. And then I'm in this brand new chapter of being a self-employed entrepreneur. So adding something new to my resume that was, kicked right off in July 2022. So here we are, brand new. So
we're riding along with you to some degree on your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah,
comparing
the most
notes.
vulnerable moments.
Right. We've both been there at different points in our journey. Brian longer back than I. Been 5 years ago when I started my own business. So sometimes when we're talking, it's like, yep, that's a new phase. That's something you have to sort out. So, what have been some things you've had to figure out about Staci as you've emerged from the background with community and engagement and marketing, those kind of things, to where now you're doing your own thing?
Yeah, such a good question, because there's so many different avenues you could answer it.
Anyone
so
you like.
week one, right, is figuring out paper products and office supplies. So it's like just getting those, knowing that I need my routine. I am a creative by heart and a people person by heart, but I also need structure, and I need things to be kind of like set up. So learning that about myself, that I will only thrive if I'm fully prepared in my home office, my roadmap, right? Yeah. Fear is something that I am running into often, but I know, and I keep repeating to myself, on the other side of fear is potentially something really great. I can see past like months 1, 2, but months 1 and 2, were stressful to think about.
6 months to 12 months, that gets to be a little more unknown when we're thinking.
Well, I think we view fear as something as negative, but I think when we kind of turn it to a positive, like when you are taking that fearful step or that fearful path, there is every time I've done something that I've been uncomfortable with or feel fearful in doing, it always like, oh, I met a really cool person. Like, I probably met you in doing something that I was uncomfortable with, and they're like, oh man, what much did that pay off? In just taking that little uncomfortable step, then I met this cool person, or I did this really cool thing,
Right.
Yeah. Something that has given me some peace of mind is the network of people that I have been such, a privilege to know and to learn from. And I'm reminded of several conversations where I have been on the other side of this table, encouraging and motivating and like pushing. So it's great that I can have folks like you, friends like you, who can do that back at me now when I need it most. So
isn't it funny how we can be so, you got this, you're going to be awesome, encourager to others, but then when we look in the mirror, we can go, what have I done? In our weakest moments.
Yeah.
I mean, I have that at times going, oh, I don't know, maybe I made a big mistake.
Yeah. Something that I did learn about myself that I always knew was there, but I just really tapped into it. To get me to the point to jump. And then now, even afterwards, is my faith. When I sort of let go and let God, quite literally, the answers all seem to just lay out in front of me. And it's been such a blessing to have that other person in my world who's just been like literally step by step with me. I wouldn't have done it if I wouldn't have literally just put my faith that this is the right move.
You're not alone.
I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I struggled with empty nest when Cole left home. My now sophomore in college, very publicly struggled when I was alone. And so kind of that aha moment for me was, no, I'm not. And I can try this. Worst case scenario, I get a job. But I don't want to go there anymore. My best case scenario is this is going to work.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of trying to shift my own mindset.
Right.
Talking about trust, like trusting in yourself, I think is probably one of the hardest things to do, because I think we can all always give each other advice, and that's always great advice. Mm-hmm. But then when you turn on yourself, it's like, oh, you have your own internal story.
That's
right?
different.
Yeah, it's so different. And you receiving that is tough. For yourself.
So much. Well, that we joked about it at the beginning of our time together today, but being considered a leader, being invited into that category of people, I didn't see that evolution. Well,
you never do.
You never do.
But
right?
we did.
Yeah.
Right.
And I see that in you, and see that in others, but it's like when you ask for your strengths, I literally had to write them down. I'm like, gosh.
That's why I ask. You got to think about that, because there are so many. Yeah.
Yeah. So I threw them on paper, but trust in yourself is we're our biggest critic. Why are we never our biggest fan?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's so silly. Well,
What are some characteristics of being a leader when you would describe like, hey, a leader is this?
oh goodness, a leader is not afraid to fail. Is humble, I believe, is such an important piece.
Yes.
In our world today, I see leaders. I think there's two different types of leaders and where they lead from. One is from ego, and one is from confidence. And I'm fearful that the category with the ego is gonna continue to grow. And I think we see that in so many of leaders who need to recalibrate a bit.
Yeah.
And so I hope and I challenge myself always to be humble in my leadership and lead from confidence, from experience. But yeah, there's just so many characteristics of
key.
leadership that
Right.
you try to kind of keep
Right.
in check.
Right.
One of my strengths is organization. You know,
Absolutely.
I don't think any of us are going to be set for success or built to succeed if we don't have our ducks in a row. So I know that is one of the areas in my world that like the to-do list. Brian and we've actually had a whole meeting about a to-do list.
We have.
When the tables were turned, right?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
But my to-do list is so important to me to keep everything just there.
Right.
Because my Rolodex is too full,
Right.
and then it falls off. And
Right.
they're important things to keep in mind.
Systems are very
Systems are important. So that's really what I'm building now, you know?
Right.
So
To take a step back, you were talking about leaders being led by ego versus, what did you say?
Confidence.
Humility, confidence. And when I first started my leadership journey with Jeff, I told him, I go, I've had a lot of bosses, but not a lot of leaders in my life. And I told him right away, like, I don't want to be a boss. That I don't want to be just the guy that, because a boss that tells you how to do something, and a leader shows you how to do that thing. And I want to be that person, but I didn't have the tools, and he helped me kind of cultivate those things and work. But I knew though right away, like that was something like I know that I don't want to be this, but how do I be the other thing?
boss to me is such a, it's almost a negative word to me.
yeah.
Yeah, it really
There
is.
was a time in my career where someone referred to me as boss openly in conversation,
ew,
and it was
icky.
cringy,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And I don't think it was disrespectful from
No.
their end, but it was not. It made me realize, how do I pivot from boss
Right.
into
Right.
leader? It was the day before, because I hadn't led people prior to working with the CVB. It was the day before my first day, and I thought to myself, you're not just doing work, you are leading people.
Right.
How on earth are you going to do this?
Right.
And I actually took a page out of Bernie Thompson, who was my leader, my
Yeah,
boss
yeah.
at the Village of Mantino, who always just had a team meeting. Simple, right? But just a space where your team can gather,
Right.
to just be vulnerable, to have the conversations. So that was the first thing I did at the CVB, is just establish a routine, a team meeting, something so simple.
Right.
But leadership, leading to me is more rewarding. One of the questions that you had sent me just to kind of get into the mindset for today was, what is the most rewarding thing about being a leader? And it was perfectly timed, because the same day I received that email with the questions, I got a text message from a former intern who's now into her 20s, into her career in DC. And it was an invitation to have coffee.
Nice.
She was back in town. And it actually gives me the goosebumps right now.
Oh yeah.
Being a leader is making an impact on a human being, on
Yeah.
a person.
Yeah.
Right.
To the point where she actually thought of me to have coffee with when she came back to visit her family. What a compliment, you know, that
So much, yeah.
that you kind of made a difference, you know. So,
Absolutely.
and I have that several times, you know, over the course of the last couple of years as my people have come and gone.
Right.
But that is my biggest reward.
Does that
truly.
surprise you every time?
Yes.
Same, and because as leaders, we like you said, we're not really aware of it. And every time somebody's like, "Oh, you help me out in a rough spot, or you help me out to figure out my path," I'm like, I was just doing what I thought I would want at that age,
Yeah.
you know? So, and to have them come back and like have that kind of impact, I'm like, oh man, that feels really cool.
One of my my first intern was a student at Olivet, Tyler Crater. I don't know if you remember Tyler. Was a basketball player.
Yeah, I remember him.
Years ago now.
Yeah.
Tyler would call me, and he would always address me, "Hey, Miss Staci, just wanted to check in." Years afterwards, and he'd come back into town. He'd ask me to go to breakfast or whatever. So like, yeah, like just making that impact, and also having those hard conversations too, like showing up for work in a certain quality of attire.
Yeah,
you know, like those are questions in your 20s that you don't always think of to ask, but like, we got to help. We're molding the future, you know, like we can't just complain about it as adults.
Right.
We got to do something about it.
Sure.
So
what they
we got
don't
to
know,
show them.
Yeah, what they don't know, they don't know. So to just kind of blindly think, oh, well, they should already know. Like, no, like if they don't, then, you know, that's what we're there for, is to show them, shape them and show them the best practices.
Yeah.
And then have them take that forward.
Yeah. I can remember my first boss, you know, and to this day, she was so impactful to me. I say boss because at the time it was it was
more the norm.
It was the norm, right? But she's so impactful to me, just in the way she did business and the way she communicated and the way she prioritized herself too. Something I learned a little late.
What were the qualities of let's call it, instead of boss, a leader? What was the qualities of that leader that really drew you to her?
Yeah, she challenged me to do projects on my own.
Okay.
She gave me that. Not freedom, but it was more like she trusted me.
Trust.
Another
That's
one.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, another one was a hard conversation that she had with me.
Yeah.
I hadn't done anything awful.
Right.
But I just
teachable moments.
I had a teachable moment, and she took me into the conference room, and she gave me the real version of that reprimand, and it wasn't just like disappointment. It was like her conversation was very simple. I was going to bat for you for a salary increase, and now I can't because. And it was a silly thing. It was back in the world of intranet, right? And I had emailed externally, and I kind of violated the rule. In my defense, it was about a babysitter issue. So I wasn't like, you know, emailing Russia or anything.
Right.
But it was a misstep for sure. It
Sure.
was against the rules, and I broke it.
Right.
And she told me, like, not only was she disappointed in me, but she had gone to bat for me and was now embarrassed because of my action. And that was like being able to tell hard truths, you know, like in a way that's not demoralizing and insulting, and it's just like a constructive criticism that. Hey, if we can't hear those hard conversations, we need to figure out how and why. You know?
And being candid rather than being like brutally honest, right? Like having those conversations where, because if she just came in and yelled at you, you would have probably just closed up and not heard anything.
Yeah.
But she had that conversation in a very open way, and that's far more productive and far more useful. And you still remember that to this day.
To this day, I can still remember the look on her face.
Yeah.
And I can remember the tears flowing from mine.
Yeah.
Not because I didn't get the dang raise,
Right.
because I disappointed her,
Right.
and that trust was broken.
Yeah.
So it's huge.
So we've talked a lot about what good leaders are and some of the leadership influences on you. What are some things you do to keep growing as a leader?
One of your questions was great. Like, what books are you reading on leadership? And admittedly, I don't read books,
Okay.
Which is so disappointing to me, right? So that's something I would like to. I'm actually carrying a book with me, so like that's something
a good start.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just holding it, right?
Yeah.
But just investing in like time. I love to work, and so I can pull long hours. I can continually stay in front of the computer or be working. So I joked about this earlier, like learning too late, but to invest in myself as a leader, I know I need to fill my cup. So I know I need to take time for me in ways that aren't necessarily like, I've done the coaching, like a course, and I've done like the seminars. That isn't always the way for me. I love them. But sometimes a road trip, which I've done, you guys know,
right.
Time away, just me.
Kind of a reset.
A reset for me is really how I find that I best serve the immediate need to plug back in.
Yeah.
So, or like time with a positive, just a person in my world that, hey, we just need coffee. Like, Brian and I actually got coffee recently. You know, we get coffee frequently. You know, like we're all like making time to fill my cup so that I'm just.
And to hear from other people
Mm-hmm.
that we know are for us, right?
Yeah.
That's the key.
Oh, such a good one.
Going back to the story about your first boss was, she had to have a hard conversation, but you knew she was for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's such an important foundational aspect of like, okay, this person needs to correct or admonish, but I haven't lost their support.
Yeah.
Right.
I just made a mistake,
And
but
I
they're
think,
for me.
For sure. And I think leaders, we tend to overlook the circle of people that are for us. And, you know, I found myself for a long time seeking kind of that validation. And I didn't know where I wanted it from. You know, was it the community? Was it my board of directors? Was it my peers? Was it my family? But I found myself seeking it. And, you know, as I left the CVB, I was in an environment where we were hosting our community luncheon. And I was leaving on good terms. I was just kind of transitioning out to start this new business. But, you know, you always wonder, like, what is the impact you left? And in the room of people, I had two standing ovations for the organization, but also I felt it differently than maybe I would have on any other day of the week in the last 10 years.
Right.
That was like a reminder of the support you have as a leader, because we often are like on an island, right? Like, who in the world knows what I'm going through? Make that phone call to the folks that do.
Right.
Who sees the flailing or the victories or the times when I'm empty? That room did. And it's been really cool.
It was a neat moment.
It was a neat moment.
Right.
So it's just like finding ways to like validate, remind you that you're doing okay.
Doing good things, making an impact.
You're making an impact.
Celebrate all the victories, not just the big ones. And I think that I know I don't follow my own advice on that. Like, have those small, you know, dance party or, you know, or even just a little celebration in your head. Like, making sure that you're taking a mental note. Like, wait, that was a really cool thing and great thing that I did, and just kind of taking it in, because I think leaders are really good at they're good at leading, and the reason why is because they can move on to the next task, and it's really easy just to kind of, you know, line up those tasks and just kind of, okay, that's done, and then not really kind of like dwell in the moment, like, oh, I got this task done. This feels really good. This is really a big moment for me.
Celebrate it.
Yeah, celebrate.
I had a great conversation with Matt McBurney yesterday, who I think you'll have on maybe later in the show. Matt we were joking about, you know, the events that they host, and we're talking about the conclusion of one, and he's like, well, you know, we kind of we roll right into the next one, and I get it, because I'm the same way. It's like we close something, and I'm like, next.
What's up next?
We don't take time to like acknowledge, you know, and celebrate and reflect, and that's something I want to do more of. You know, again, from that humble perspective, from the constant learner perspective, how can I do things better?
Right.
Sure.
Always.
Sure.
So
your journey through chamber world, convention visitor bureau led you to become an entrepreneur. So I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about that as your present focus and entrepreneurial step.
Yeah.
So tell us about Experience Edit and what that is and what you're turning that into.
Yeah. So Experience Edit kind of came to life coincidentally after creating my list of strengths, and I was kind of like what's next? You know, like, do I look on LinkedIn for a job? How do I find a job? And I kind of got to the point where I'm like, maybe I can offer something to our business community, to our nonprofit world, to our small business world, that can kind of be a little bit of a link for them to up-level their client experience. So I'm going to read it because I'm not great at it. So we can all laugh at me in maybe 3 years, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Here's
your pitch.
Here's
right?
my pitch, which I'm still finessing out the gate. Experience Edit is an experience-based management agency that will curate thoughtful customer experiences by incorporating a 5-sense strategy into the day-to-day while the business owner gets to do the things that they love. So what does that mean? I want to up-level the client experience so businesses can gain more market share, so they can free up some time that they would be devoting to it. I kind of come in as a jack of all trades. So does that mean that I'm going to do the same thing for every client? Probably not. But I can definitely hear what their needs are, and maybe see an outside perspective that maybe they didn't see. You know, I am a teller of hard truths in a way that I hope to inspire growth, better their marketing materials. You know, how do you experience your brand? You know, like, we know what Pathfinder is, we know what Converge is, and we know that you're part of them, and we know the color of the logo and the brand. Do clients feel that when they do business with ABC company, or from their business cards to their website to their T-shirts to all of it, and even bigger into like the lobby experience? How does it feel? How are you communicating with your clients? All of it. So just kind of up leveling client experience, really.
So you almost, if I'm hearing you right, you almost help clients to see things they might be or I should say businesses might be missing something that their client sees or doesn't experience, and you can kind of be that stand in the gap person to say, here's a way that you could enrich the experience of your current customers or your future clients.
Yeah, one of my strengths is seeing the small things, or seeing the things that most don't. And Brian and I have worked together so often in video.
All about the details.
When we're doing a video, like, I can see the garbage on the floor in the background, and so can he, obviously. But I have that strength where I can kind of like see through the cracks, fill the gaps, to really like condense your brand into solid messaging, and kind of like, instead of seeing those holes and I'm seeing this as a small business owner now. That's hard to do when you're all the things, right? Like, when I'm the accountant, the social media person, the website expert, and I got to try to do business, there are cracks, and it's not for lack of trying. It's just lack of capacity to do all the work. I think approaching it, what I'm really excited about, my approach to the strategy is using 5 senses. So how do you see, taste, smell, feel, and hear a business? How can we make all of those categories? How can we up-level those?
Very cool. Very cool.
That's awesome.
What advice would you give to 20-year-old Staci, knowing what you know now?
Okay. It's kind of a dorky answer, but I feel like it sets them up for, it would literally be what I told my 20-year-old self.
Okay. Which was what?
Budget. Money is such it is a energy suck. From my whole life, it's been an energy suck, and that is what today is what is the biggest energy suck.
Shout out to Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, I mean, like, for sure. Is to set yourself up for success financially from the get-go, so you can take the risks, so you can do the trips, you can live the life you want, because now, like, I don't know.
Staci, the time always flies by. Every time we've had a different leader in for conversations with us, we look at the clock and say, wow, I can't believe the time has gone already, but it has, and we're grateful for your time. You were talking about budgeting earlier, and budgeting time means you set aside an hour to come here and be with us and have this conversation about leadership. So thanks for coming with us. We'll look forward to watching you grow your business and just enjoy the days ahead.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Great. Thanks again.
Yeah.
On our next episode, we'll be joined by Matt McBurney, Vice President of Institutional Advancement at Riverside Medical Center.